Hey guys, welcome to Weekend on Wednesday. And you might think it's a new person. It is not. It is Pastor Alex Suber. Alex, how are you doing, man?
I'm back.
You're back.
I know I've been gone forever. Some of you may have forgotten about me, but I am back, alive and well. I'm here.
Yeah. And I just got the notification going out, so we may have some people. If you're watching this live, give us a thumbs up, a heart, wherever you're watching from. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. Pastor's starting to see a bunch of the eyeballs, and we already got some likes and hearts coming in. So, guys, tell us where you're coming from. Have you had supper already? What has your day brought you? We want this to be engaging, and we want you to comment in the comment section. Let us know what's going on with your world.
Yes, please ask us some questions, whatever questions you may have. That's one thing we've been. This is supposed to be a Q&A, so ask us some questions. But I just want to thank you, Matt. I think we need to give a shout out to Matt for just doing a great job hosting these and controlling all the back end and stuff. So I can't see it on my end, but just give Matt some hearts and some thumbs up and stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. So
I was telling him before we went live, I'm like, he's the professional. I've got these, look at this. This is so amateur. He's got the microphone and the all kinds of stuff. Okay, I'm starting to see some comments now. So they're just now popping up.
Yeah, they're starting to come in.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, good to see everybody in the chats.
Troy, what's up on YouTube? Awesome.
Who's the funniest person at Oasis? I don't know. We got a couple clowns in there. We got a couple.
Who asked that? I just see
it just says Facebook user.
Facebook user.
Yeah. Hey, if you are watching this and you're wondering why it doesn't tell us your name, at one of the links in the description, you'll see a deal where you can click on it and it'll let us know your name. Otherwise, you can stay anonymous. It's totally fine.
If you want to ask some of you guys should stay anonymous so that you can ask the questions that you want to ask.
Right.
Because I know some of you, you're like, I don't want to say this,
Well, it'll show up on Facebook, but here we can't see you.
There's some funny people. There's some funny people. Most of the funny people you would not realize. So Matt's a pretty funny guy. A lot of our guys that are real like burly and manly man that you would think wouldn't be. My uncle Jeremy Ledoux, if you can get him going. Steven Salazar. People always think he's this super spiritual. Never leaves the heavenly realm, but he can switch quick. Trust me. I've been on vacation with him. It's interesting, but yeah, there's tons of funny people.
Allison Pamplin says, me. I don't know if you're saying that you asked the question or you are one of the funniest people there.
I think she said she's one of the funniest people. Yeah,
for sure. Well, so one of the things about funny people is they know how to use words, right? And that's what James 3 was all about. Look at that
segue.
Action. That wasn't planned.
Look
planned.
At that
Here we go.
Segue.
Yeah. Oh, Steve-O's in the chats giving us some stuff.
I tend to switch pretty quick.
Yeah. So anyway, Allison is for sure one of the funniest people. But
Allison's one of the best people because she brought Hannah and I Round Rock Donuts and kolaches during quarantine when we couldn't leave our house because of Xander. So got to give her a shout out for that.
Man, I've never gotten that delivery system. So awesome.
Just a little guilt on you, Allison, for next time. I'm
going to need you to go around to like 300 or 400 people all within Oasis and pass out those donuts. So no, but hey, let's get started in this. So James 3, this is week 4 of our essential services. Which has been phenomenal. We've gone through, we are currently going through the book of James, and we're on chapter 3. I don't know. Did we finish it? I can't remember. Well, I know we went through verse 12.
We haven't been going necessarily verse by verse. We've just been kind of taking some of the biggest themes because honestly, I mean, we could probably go a couple of years pulling stuff out of James. So yeah, the part that I didn't get into is in my Bible it talks about heavenly versus demonic wisdom. So maybe we'll get into that. I don't want to get that demonic wisdom, but yeah, we're just focused on mainly. I didn't even read every verse, but mainly chapter 3, verse 1 through 12 is what we hit on this past Sunday.
Yeah. And so just a reminder, if this is your first time here joining us on this live chat, we're going to be covering what Pastor Alex preached on this past Sunday. So this is the Weekend on Wednesday where we recap, and we're asking you to submit your questions, type them in the comments, let us know. And man, if I had this when I was, quote unquote, a new Christian, like really just learning my stuff in faith, James is probably the best Bible to just study all the time. And if you're new to Christianity, if you're like just checking it out, whatever, this is a great book to start in. And so this is a great
it's very practical. A lot of the Bible, which is so amazing, is very very much about heart and kind of big picture type stuff, and these big theological implications of justification and sanctification and sin and all these different things. But James is just like, hey, here's what you need to do, once you become a Christian. That's actually one thing that I kind of mentioned on Sunday is, the book of James is written specifically to believers, and pretty much most of the books are, but he says he's like, hey, brothers and sisters, which when you're reading the Bible and you ever see brothers and sisters, that is kind of another way to say believers, hey believers, this is specifically for you. So yeah, you're totally right. Great book to start in if you're reading through the Bible.
Awesome. Sorry, I think somebody had a question about prayer, so I put in our prayer chat.
No, that's great.
And then I forgot to unmute my mic. So yeah, James 3:2. You're saying the perfect man controls his mouth, right? That's kind of where we started.
Yeah. I've actually got my real Bible here. It's interesting. So it said, I'll just read it here. It says, my brethren, which another translation, this is the New King James. I think I used the New Living on Sunday. It says, my brethren, let not many of you become teachers, knowing that we shall receive a stricter judgment. Now that's something interesting that I didn't really hit on Sunday, just because of time, and that's kind of why we're doing this thing, because we have more time to discuss stuff. But I think it's kind of interesting that as he begins to talk about talking, he kind of he hits on teachers there, because a lot of people we're quick to kind of teach and give our opinion, and even today really everyone has which is incredible. Everyone has the ability to do a live broadcast like this, do a YouTube video, do a whatever, and you can give, your interpretation and your opinion of what different scriptures mean and different stuff. But he's saying just be careful, because there's going to be a stricter judgment. Your words are going to be judged a little bit more heavily, because things you're saying are impacting people, especially if people have, recognized you as a spiritual leader, a minister, a pastor, or apostle, bishop, whatever title may be. If they put you as that position in their life, then what you say, you may just say it offhand, and it may just be something, what you mean, yeah, well, I said that, but I kind of, I meant this, and this. Well, the person hearing that may not have known that. And so, I think just an encouragement to people that are on here, it's just, again, in the world today, really all of us are constantly teaching and putting stuff out. So just be careful what you say. But I clicked off 1 second. But just to go on what you were just saying, Matt, it says, for we all stumble in many things. If anyone does not stumble in word, he is a perfect man, able to also bridle the whole body. And so that word bridle there is kind of, you'll see bridle. Some translations you'll see tame the tongue, different things. But I just thought that was really interesting, because so many people, we all struggle with different things. And, whether it's an addiction, shout out to my addiction right here, Dr. Pepper. That was a nice segue.
That's awesome.
Whether it's an addiction, or whether it's identity issues or anger issues, or, all these different things people struggle with. It's interesting that James makes the claim that if we could control our tongue, then we would be able to control all of the other stuff. And that was kind of the I guess you could say the thesis of the sermon on Sunday is so many of us we want to automatically get into the do. I don't know about you, Matt, or the people that are watching, but I'm very much like a doer. I'm like, give me the action steps, give me the whatever, give me the 1, 2, 3, the ABC, and I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll work hard, but just, I want to just have the steps. And so what James is saying, even though he is giving a lot of great steps, there's just things here. I was just looking at the headings of the next couple, just these, pride promotes strife, humility cures worldliness, don't judge a brother, be patient in person. These are all the different topics that James is going to talk about over the next couple of chapters. And we'll discuss some of those in the next couple of weeks. But so it's like, he is going to give you a lot of practical stuff, but none of that matters if you're not talking the right way.
Right.
None of that matters if what you're confessing of your life is not lining up with what God says.
Yeah. And one of the things that I found interesting with what you started it off was that James is writing this to the persecuted church.
Right.
It's not like, hey, James, look, we really need some inspiration right here. We need to do, we need to know what to do. How do we keep moving the church forward?
Yeah, like, exactly.
Watch
so
your
mouth, it's like, come on, James, give us how do we have a church service without the Roman government finding us? How do we, that's the type of stuff I would, like right now during COVID, so many pastors and leaders, it's like, okay, well, how do we set up our live stream? How do we, we're in crisis mode, how do we, and we're, depending on what group you're part of and what, church, different people look at different places. And it would almost be like if in the middle of this pandemic, because honestly, the persecuted church was much worse than what we just went through, but just because it's in our mind, it would just be, imagine the person that you're looking to just being like, hey, well, make sure you're talking positively during COVID. All right, I'll talk to you later. And you're like, what the heck, man? Like I appreciate that. Like, that's good. Anybody ever told you something? You're like, that's really good, but just, I don't know about for right now. Like I need something for right now. And because they were going through major persecution, and James was written later in the first century. James is doing kind of some of the last writing with Revelation, with different things like that. So he's kind of gotten a little bit of a view of where the early church has gone. I think that's why he's able to give such practical steps, is because he's like, okay, some of these books were written within the first 10 to 15 years of the church being born. So they're just thinking real, what's the word, like experimental. I can't think of the word. Real, philosophical. That's there. It's real philosophical. Like, this is how we're going to do things. And yeah, you're going to struggle with this. And these are, and then James has the perspective of coming back a little bit later. And I'm sorry, he didn't write Revelation. That was totally wrong. That was heretical. I'm sorry if I said that earlier. But James has the opportunity to come back a little bit later, and I think see like, okay, well, here's the actual things that you're gonna deal with. It's almost like somebody, I just had a son, for those of you that don't know, I'm gonna have to throw that out there in everything I do. I'm going to be that preacher, but it's kind of like, I imagine, people when they're getting ready to have kids, you can think about all the stuff that you're going to need to know. And it's like, you need to know how to do this and know how to do this and go to this class and go to this training. But then someone that has a 15-year-old or even someone that has a 5 or 6-year-old, they can actually tell you like, well, this is actually what you're going to deal with. So like, I know you're worried about these things, and yeah, those are important. So that's what James is saying. Like, I know you're worried about your current persecution, your current situation, but what really is going to sustain you and what really is going to carry you in your faith and carry you through long-term in life is going to be what you're confessing, and not just confessing out loud. But another point that I made is what you're saying in here, because many of us, we'll either not say anything, or we will say, yeah, it's going to be okay. We're going to make it through. Yeah, I believe God. I trust God. But on the inside, we're like, no, this isn't going to happen. On the inside, we're talking down to ourselves. We're being negative. And so, yeah, so he's like, hey, I know you think you need to know this over here, but I'm going to tell you what you really need to know.
Yeah, that's good. So, so guys, if you're there, feel free to type in the comments any questions you had about Pastor Alex's sermon. And, Pastor, I think just to kind of re-jog some people's memory, there were three things that you mainly went through. And that was, the first one, because we didn't go verse by verse, but we did go kind of just how it was broken down to.
Yeah, it's kind of what I would call like thought by thought kind of thing. Yeah.
And so kind of verses 3 and 4, you talked about your talk directs your life. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I loved was that I got out of it, one of the the key phrases was direction is more important than speed, because we can go really fast the wrong way and realize, we're not anywhere close to where we should be.
Totally.
Or you use the analogy that some people have used, where you can climb a ladder all the way to the top, but once you get up there and realize that it's on the wrong wall, you got to take that whole thing down and climb another one again.
Yeah, so many people are climbing up the ladder of success, but it's the wrong success. I think that applies specifically because I know most of the people that are going to be watching this are going to be believers. I think it applies because so many of us we get into our Christian faith, whether you did that as a child or as a teenager, as an adult, later in life, whenever it may be. And especially, the kind of charismatic Pentecostal tradition in the United States, we talk a lot, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but we talk a lot about calling and, changing the world and, using your giftings and anointing and these different things, which is all incredible. I do it. I'm all for it. But I think sometimes we don't, we kind of focus more on that than the person that you're necessarily becoming. And so I think that's why we have so many people that get, they get far along in their calling. And I'm not just saying, vocational ministry, but whatever it is that you feel, and but then they reach a place and they're like, oh, well, this isn't, even though it's a good thing, it really wasn't like what they were supposed to do, or they went too far too fast and they ended up, getting in some kind of moral situation or something like that. And so what I was trying to say is, just making sure that you're in the right direction. And I think the reason I said that was because your words dictate so much of what your direction is in life. People, what you're speaking, and you can be around somebody for a few minutes, but especially if you're around them for a few days or a few whatever, you can kind of pick up their outlook on life, like kind of what they value, what's important to them, what excites them, what they don't really care about, what's not a big deal to them. And so you have to figure out you kind of have to look at your words and say, okay, am I headed in the right direction? Not just doing a bunch of things, not just climbing up and checking things off the checklist and climbing the rungs of the ladder. But am I actually going in the right direction?
Right. Yeah, that's so good. And then the second one was your talk brings life or death. And I love this one just because I love the way that you say machete. Is that how they do it?
Yeah, machete.
Or death by 1,000 cuts, right?
Yeah.
You can do the razor, and we can all be guilty of that. But like you were saying, me as a guy, I'm more I'm just going to get in there and I'm going to make one big slash and just cut it down. Yeah. Man, that really convicted me. Just because I do see that, like in the way, like I don't do it all the time, obviously, but I could see things when you were speaking about it. Like I need to be more careful with my words and just realizing that, hey, I'm probably more prone to just like, swing the axe, swing the machete, whatever you want to say. And that I got to be careful, because
Yeah.
that's just how I like to. I'll blanket statement stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And
Me
I've been
too.
married for 10 years now, and I learned early on in my marriage that I did that a lot.
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
all kinds of phrases, or I would
You
word
always do this.
always,
You never
forever,
do
like,
this.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I had to take some of those words out of my vocabulary,
Mhm.
because it's not conducive to healthy relationships or just healthy
Yeah.
speech.
Yeah. So just to kind of, if you didn't watch the sermon yet, I was saying that basically, you could cut someone in two different ways with your words. Speaking it, talking about bringing the death, we're talking about breathing life, but also death. And I think here, let me just pull up the scripture that. So look also at the ships, although they are, no, I'm sorry, that's the direction.
5 to 7.
Is it? Yeah. So it talks about the tongue being a fire, and the tongue destroying a forest, and that sort of thing. So that's essentially, if you look at your life as the forest, I would say that, the words that you're saying, those are the sparks and can kill things. Well, what I was saying is, with the machete, if you've ever been maybe camping before, or if you've ever tried to like clear out some brush, on your property or whatever, you just swing that thing, and it's really not, you're not even really thinking about it. You're just like, something's in front of me, and I'm just swinging it. And
Which is a lot of fun when you have an actual machete.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's great fun, but if you're not careful, you can, hit yourself or hit somebody or chop down the wrong tree. I've done that before when I was a teenager. Hey, Alex, go do that over there, and then I chopped down like the rose bush. And I'm like, I thought I was supposed to. It was fun.
Flowers everywhere, man.
But essentially, that's what we can do with our words. We can just come in and just not really think about what we're saying, where we're swinging it, what the implication, and we just do this stuff, and we just say broad statements about people in our life. Well, so and so, they're always going to be this, or they're yeah, that's just how they are. That's that's just whatever. Or it could be about a group of people. We're facing a lot of issues in our country right now. I hit on this a little bit throughout the sermon. We're facing a lot of just a lot of stuff with racial tension in our country right now. A lot of great things are happening. A lot of justice is happening, but a lot of craziness too. And so it's very easy for people. That's kind of where prejudice comes in. Is where you kind of cut off a whole group of people because you say, well, all Caucasians are this way, all African Americans are this way, all Latinos are this way, all Asians are this way, whatever. And it's just and there's no nuance, there's no details, just a big thing. So, and then the second one I said was versus like a razor blade. And so I have like these little razor blades that I use to edge up my beard sometimes. And I mean, they're these tiny little thin things. And, even when you cut yourself, sometimes you don't even see the blood at first because it's so thin. Yeah. Your skin has to kind of like get stretched or something before you start to see the blood. And I think it's I don't know if it's true, but you've seen these samurai movies and stuff where they would torture people in history by killing them by death of 1,000 cuts. That's kind of a thing where it wouldn't be a big chop. It's just a little cut, a little cut, a little cut, a little cut.
Yeah.
And so what I was saying is with people, we do this in our relationships. We do this online. We do this where maybe you don't say this big statement, but maybe it's just this little thing, or maybe, you retweet this kind of passive aggressive thing, or you just kind of, you and your spouse are watching a movie, and you're just kind of like, you just kind of say something like, oh, I wish you would do something like that. And it's like, it's not this big, huge thing, but it's just like a little cut. And you're just showing them like, hey, I actually like what that person on TV is doing better than what you do, even though that's an imaginary person. So it's just this little cut. And I think, I think a lot of us we don't really think about those little things that we say. We don't think about like the little things that we're saying online, the little comments that we're saying, but it can lead to death. And one thing that I mentioned specifically about our words, and I think somebody just commented on something maybe we can address, but we're seeing in our culture right now this whole thing of cancel culture. And, which some of it I think is good. I think there's people that should, lose their influence. They should lose their positions in companies because they've exploited people or abused people, whatever. Sometimes I think it goes too far, I think, but that's neither here nor there. But what I'm trying to say is we don't realize sometimes, right now we live in a world where everything, if you put it online, or even if you don't put it online, I mean, if everything is being recorded, everything is being remembered, which again is great, because I think, I looked it up today. I forget the exact verse, but the Bible says, those things that are hidden in the light and the darkness are going to be brought to light. And a lot of people talk about that being on the day of judgment, but that's really the world we're living in right now. We're like, if you've ever, especially with racial, if you've ever said a racial slur, or, my wife, she enjoys watching this reality show, and one of the stars on that show has a podcast. And like 4 years ago, and I mean, this girl is huge. I mean, millions of dollars from this reality show. I don't understand it, but and like 4 years ago, she just kind of just randomly, not, wasn't this planned thing, but she just kind of said some stuff about, these little cuts about, a certain ethnic group. And I don't get this. And why does this? And, that's on her podcast, and somebody brought it up, and she lost everything. She lost her spot on that reality show. She lost her brand endorsements. She lost her, she was going to get married overseas next year, and like People magazine was going to do this big spread, and they were going to like pay for or some magazine was going to like pay for the wedding and all this stuff. So they're not doing that anymore. So she's going to have to cancel her wedding, and it's like, that's probably fair because what she did was wrong, but it just shows us that though your words have the power to destroy, and your words have the power to destroy. Just to make it a little bit more practical for us, because I don't know if we have any reality stars watching, but specifically, if you're married with your children, that's a huge thing that I'm becoming cognizant of. Even though Xander's only 6 weeks old, it's like he's gonna begin to pick up on things, even if I don't outright say it to him, but if I like say it to his mom, and if he overhears in the future, or it doesn't have to be. I think we think of these people that like verbally or physically abuse their kids, and these horrible things that happen to children, but it could just be these little cuts. And the thing that and this is the last thing I'll say on this point, and we can answer questions or move on, but the thing that I said is, I think a lot of us, we are carrying cuts and wounds that happened years ago. And we have that little like rhyme that you say when you're a kid, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And I just think that's just a complete lie, because the things in life that hurt the most seem to be words. I mean,
because I've carried with me.
Yeah.
the longest, what I mean?
I've broken my foot. I've injured myself in other ways, and that'll heal up. I could put a cast on it, stay off of it for a little bit. It'll heal up. Well, someone could say something to you, and especially maybe that person passes away, or maybe you lose a relationship with that person, and there's no reconciliation. And so, you can forgive them and you can work through it, but that's like a hurt that you're going to have to work on. And so, people in the audience or people that are listening, maybe you've been hurt by words, or maybe it's the flip way. I think we've all experienced both, or maybe you've put it on other people where you've hurt other people with your words. So it's it's the death, or the other thing is the life. And I won't spend as much time on that, but just, so much has been shown, and I actually want to show you guys a little example here, and I almost forgotten that, but so much has been shown, even in science, about the power of speaking positive words over someone or negative words over someone. So I mentioned this in the second service, but if you're watching online or if you're in the first service, you probably didn't see this. So IKEA, kind of random that it's IKEA.
Reshare your screen.
Okay, can you see it now?
Yep, here we go. All right.
Okay. So IKEA did this experiment where and just I want you to just look at these two plants. IKEA did this experiment where they put both of these plants in glass containers separately, and I think we just lost Matt, but he'll hop back on.
I'm here.
So there he is. So they put these in different containers, and what they did is they were trying to show that they were trying to teach school kids, like middle schoolers, high schoolers, about the implications of bullying. And so what they did is they put this in a school, and they encouraged kids to bully one of the plants and then to speak positive affirmations over the other plant. And so what happens is after 30 days, these plants had the same amount of sunlight. They were in glass cases, so no one was touching them. There were no environmental differences. And the plant on the left, this one right here, is the plant that was bullied, quote unquote. And this one was the one that was spoken life over. And so my whole thing was, as people, how much more are we affected by words? If this is what happens to a plant that doesn't have ears, that doesn't have emotions, that doesn't have a heart, that doesn't have whatever, hopes and dreams and all these things, if it can kill a plant this much, imagine what it can do to us. Yeah. And you can look that up. That experiment has been repeated several times. It's not just a one-time thing. You go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the pastor in me, is wondering, like, so what happens if we change? Like, I wonder what happens to that plant if we start speaking life to that plant. You know what I mean? Like,
that'd be great.
I wonder if there's any. I mean, that's just something I'm thinking of right now.
Maybe you should do that experiment.
That would be cool, man.
I honestly think usually in science, opposites are true. So I think as long as it was still alive in a sense, I think you could probably nurture it back.
I've got we've got one of those like cactus plants in here.
Yeah.
Or, it's got all kinds of different, whatever those plants are.
Right.
Aloe vera, whatever. And that sucker's dying. And so I'm going to start, when I get off this, I'm going to go speak
some life over that thing. Yeah.
It needs some help, faux show.
Yeah.
Man, that's good. One of the people on YouTube did ask, what's something that we can do, I guess, to boil down a couple of their questions is, if we are hearing these horrible things that we see on the news or whatever, what's kind of a way, it's not really about speaking, but more about hearing, do you have anything to say to that? If we are hearing these bad things, maybe something that can help.
Yeah. I'm looking at the question right now, kind of trying to boil it down, which thank you for submitting that question.
Yeah.
And definitely, if you're watching, we'd love for anybody submitting questions. Excuse me. I think there's some great stuff. Let me actually see. I don't know if I can find it. There's actually some great stuff in chapter 4, James chapter 4. I would encourage you to read. But I think in the world that we live in, like just like Matt said, I think being a listening ear is so important. None of us really know how to address the current climate that we're in right now. We live in a time in history that is like never before. Yes, we've always had injustice. We've always had the oppression of different people groups, whether that be people from Africa or Japanese people oppressing the Chinese people, or Europeans oppressing the Jewish people. What these different oppressions throughout history. But I think the world we're living in right now, I think it was Will Smith said, racism isn't any worse. It's just being filmed more.
Yeah.
And so I think one thing that is hard is, in some ways, I think people do need to see what's going on right now in the world and don't just need to cut it off. But the other thing is, and I'll just end with this, is I would just say, especially with your social media, I'm a big proponent of speaking solutions and finding the positive moments in things, and not just perpetuating the problem and not just talking about the problem. Because like right now, I mean, like I'll take COVID-19 for example, instead of, because it's a real touchy topic, all this stuff, but COVID-19, everybody's do this, here's the news, wear the mask, do this thing. It's like, okay, I know, like, I know, like it's COVID-19. I know that it's bad. I know it's bad. I know, okay, we know. So what I prefer to do is, like, if I'm going to say something, let me say something that's going to bring positivity and what I would call, like, what is going to bring life into that situation. Because if everyone's speaking death, like if everyone's saying, America, is the worst thing in the world. And it's like, yes, we have horrible issues that need to be addressed and horrible things in our history, but there are still good things that are happening. There's still good people. There's still, things that Americans have done to help people all around the world and to help people, here within the United States. So it's like, don't ignore all the bad stuff. Don't just turn a blind eye, but also, make sure that you're kind of adding, what are solutions? And I mean, that's been one thing. And I know it's kind of off topic, but I think it's good to talk about, because social media, I don't know if I mentioned this. I did say in my sermon that, I think we have to include social media and our tweets and our texts and all that sort of thing in with our speech.
The same thing.
Yeah. That's good. You're typing your tongue are the same thing. Because so many of us now, that's how we communicate. Most of us, my parents were telling me this, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, maybe even more recent than that. If somebody went on a vacation, they would come over to your house to tell you about their vacation. Like, you didn't hear about it unless you had dinner, and they would tell you about their vacation and, pull out the little package from Walgreens with the printed out pictures and show you the pictures. Well, now that doesn't happen. I just get my information from Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And so you can't just say, oh, why, I didn't say that. It's like, but you posted it. So it's basically the same thing as you saying it. And this is why I think you have to be careful even with news articles and stuff you post, and even the sources that you post from. And this is just getting real practical and real pastoral. Is, for instance, a website or a media outlet, they may say something that is good, like what, that was good. But if everything else on their website is negative or is hateful or is racist or is whatever, think twice about posting that one article. Because it's like, that article, or people even retweeting people, like, that thing they said was like really good. But if someone clicks on that profile and they see a bunch of curse words and they see a bunch of racial slurs and they see a bunch of hate and bigotry and whatever, whether it's racial or whether it's against people's sexuality, these different things, is it worth you putting that out there when it could, again, cut those people? And so, maybe I'm a little bit more hesitant than that, but I've just seen too many people that have gotten caught up because, they say something that gets a couple likes on Facebook because or on Instagram or Twitter because it's, what's the word? It's a hot button issue and it's something everybody wants to talk. And so it's like, oh man, I'm going to say this and I'm going to really burn them. I'm going to really, President Trump said this, I'm going to do this, or
I'm going to let it go.
The leader of, Black Lives Matter said this. So I'm going to tweet this back. And it's like, yeah, that might bring you a little satisfaction. And, your group might, give you a little golf clap, but is it worth is it worth that swing, and sometimes it is. I mean, sometimes it is, but I know that didn't really answer the question well, but I would say people that are really upset and that sort of thing, I would say, I think to a certain extent, I think people need to be upset. I know I have friends that have been sheltered and privileged much of their life, that have never been exposed to some of these things. They don't understand the history of some of our, country. And, so they need to be, so she said, and a solution to the right, everyone deserves to be respected.
Troy, I don't know how you kill an aloe vera plant. I'm trying my best to keep this thing alive, man. It's
That's like a cactus.
I'll
How do you
add.
kill a cactus? The only way you kill a cactus is by watering it too much.
So
That's the
that's the
weird
thing.
thing
We
to
don't
me.
know if we're watering it too much or not. So
Probably.
my wife's boss gave this to her when she was first hired on, and then they
Oh
went
gosh.
into shutdown mode
He's
in
gonna
COVID.
ask her about that plant, and she's gonna be like, "I killed it."
Yeah, and this plant was stuck, in her office for I don't know how many weeks we were shut in, during
Yeah.
quarantine. So we went there and like it had all started to like brown, and so we put more water in it, but then we didn't know how, and then now we're stuck in this battle of, well, are we watering enough or not enough? Like
Who
we
knows?
we
That's a
don't know.
sermon right there. Are you speaking enough life? Or are
I
you not
don't know.
speaking? There you
I'm so
go,
confused right now. I
man.
need some people's help. But man,
Yeah,
this has been good, guys. Thanks for commenting and putting your comments in there and your
yeah.
questions.
I think we got one more that we'll get
One,
to, and then if there's
yeah,
any
it was
final
your
questions.
talk defines your life, and so we kind of, your talk directs your life and it brings life or death, but then it also defines your life. And so
Yeah,
James goes on to write, a few more verses, but pretty much we can't, sing exaltations and we can't sing hallelujah or and praise God in one breath and then turn around and curse our brother in the next.
yeah. I mean,
You know?
that's literally what he says. It says, "No man can tame the tongue, for it's truly evil." Um, with it we bless our God and Father, and with it we curse men who have been made in the similitude of God, is what my translation says, but in the likeness of God. And that's a whole nother thing that I think, it relates to right where we're at, is like, if you truly understand how much God loves people and how we're created in God's image and how we're his children, even if we're running away from him, even if we're turned away from him, whatever, if you really get that picture of people, it becomes hard, or harder, I should say, to speak death over someone's life. And I don't know how I'm speaking death like a witch or something, this person's going to die. I'm just saying, like, speaking negatively, speaking down to them, cutting them down. It's like that thing I've heard people say before. It's really hard to gossip about someone you're praying for. If you're truly praying for someone and caring about them, it's really hard to gossip and talk bad about them. And that's basically what James is saying. So it's like, if you're truly praising God, if you're truly speaking, and that's going to be the direction of your life, that's going to be how you determine to live your life. It's going to be really hard to speak that negatively. And then the next one says, does a spring send forth fresh water and bitter from the same opening? And so I mentioned something we say at Oasis sometimes, or we said it a couple times, is, when people come to you and they're looking for affirmation, they're looking for, a word of advice, whatever, you can either be a freshwater spring or you can be a sewer drain. So you have to determine in your life, which of those are you going to be? Which one are you gonna bring out? And let me I just want to pull up my point here. And so it's like, what do you believe? And then to kind of really the main point of this was, Luke chapter 6 says, out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. And so what you are saying, whether you realize it or not, it's overflowing from what you really believe about life. And so it's real easy for us to say, I believe in God. I believe God is going to heal me. I believe God's going to provide for me. I believe God is going to save my children. I believe God is going to help me to overcome this addiction. Say that one time, but then look at the rest of your week, how many times you say the opposite. So kind of what I mentioned was, people come into church and we'll sing songs like Waymaker, Miracle Worker, Promise Keeper, but then when you get sick, are you singing Miracle Worker? Are you saying like, oh man, I got sick, I gotta, this just always happens to me and I just always get sick and I got to go to the doctor, and well, I don't have insurance and how am I going to pay for it? And how, and you just go off and all those things are very real. I mean, I just got insurance for the first time this year in like 6 years. So I get it. It's real. But in those moments is what is flowing out of you. Is that what that's what you believe. So it kind of defines, like, your talk defines what you really believe. And then the last scripture I said is Mark chapter 11, verse 23. Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he says, I tell you the truth, you can say to this mountain, and he was actually pointing at a literal mountain. So what he did, Jesus looked around and he found the biggest thing he could find. So he looked around, so look around your room right now, or look around, whatever, find the biggest thing that you can find, and imagine Jesus saying, like, okay, speak to this thing and say, may you be lifted up and thrown into the sea, and it will happen, but you must truly believe it. It will happen, and have no doubt in your heart. Well, going back to Luke chapter 6, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So if you're speaking something, if you're speaking doubt, then that means doubt must be in your heart. And if doubt is in your heart, then that means you can't move the mountains in your life. And so a lot of people, we want to say, oh, we're going to move this mountain, but their heart and the overflow of their heart, their speech is not lining up with that. And so I think what you have to do in these type of situations, and we'll just close on this if there's any final questions, but the thing that I would love for you just to take away is speak it before you see it. So many of us, we live with this attitude, and I preach about this pretty often because I think it's just kind of something that I struggle with is I see it, then I'll believe it. We say that all the time. We I'll believe it when I see it. There's a the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl this year. I'll believe it when I see it.
Hey, how about them Tigers though?
Yay, come on, somebody! This year's going to be rough.
I'm still ready for football, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we need to start a whole nother podcast about that. But what the Bible teaches is actually the opposite. What Jesus teaches is actually the opposite of if you want to see it, you have to believe it first. And you have to define what you believe by what you speak. So it's kind of this opposite. Most of us, we see it. So we see God sent me a check in the mail. So I saw it. So now I'm going to believe that God will provide for me. And now I'm going to speak it. Man, you know what happened this week? It was so crazy. God sent me a check in the mail, came out of nowhere. It was amazing. And sometimes that will happen to people, and they'll talk about that for the rest of their life. It's, man, God provided me. So, but what God is saying is, and I'm not, again, I said at the opening of when I preach this message, this isn't a name it and claim it of, you're going to get a jet or you're going to get a big house or whatever. It's more about faith and God's promises over your life. And so if God's promised you, say that your children will be saved, maybe they're turned away from God and they're not following him, but you don't see that yet. There's no evidence. They're not asking questions about God. They're not coming to church. They're not posting scriptures on their Instagram. They're doing whatever. So our natural reaction was, well, that's what I see. So that's what I believe. So what God said must not be true. When it really needs, if we want to define our life by what the Bible says and not our natural human thinking, then it's the complete opposite. We always teach at Oasis, we're a kingdom church, and the kingdom culture, kingdom mentality is almost always exactly opposite of our worldly mentality. And so a worldly mentality, if you want to be great, then you become the highest. Kingdom mentality is you want to be great, you become the lowest and become a servant. It's always flipped upside down. And so we have to speak it before we believe it. And the example I use, and I'll say this, and then Matt, you can give your points. I'm going to run and grab my computer charger real quick. But the point that I gave was, with Oasis, when we launched Oasis, I'm so thankful for where we are now. And I know God has so much more for us. We have such a vision for what's going to come in the future. And God has brought so many people in this season that we're going to just begin to do even greater things. But when it was just me, my mom, and my dad, even before me and Hannah were together, we were speaking things about Oasis. I can go back and show you on pages, things we wrote in 2015, early 2016, before we even announced on social media, before we ever had a meeting, before we ever had one person join the church, whatever, we were saying, oh, we're going to be, multicultural. We're going to have, move of the Spirit, but we're going to be practical. We're going to have a deep end, but we're still going to reach lost people. We're going to, we're going to have multiple campuses. We're going to serve our city. We're going to be for God, for people, for, all these different things, but we couldn't see any of that. What we saw was me being 23 years old, leaving a very strong church with a very good salary as a student ministry pastor. And they wanted me to be, and another church wanted me to hire me as a campus pastor. Me leaving those things to move back with my parents and start driving Uber and doing photography, and my dad selling insurance. Cause that's the thing. We don't really talk about this stuff so much. I was talking to Hetty, who's our youth director, yesterday, cause he's about to step out in faith with some business stuff. And I was like, man, we've been there. We don't talk about it a whole lot, but dad was selling insurance, different things just to get, so we didn't have, people were like, hey, you need $150,000 at least to launch a church. Well, we had like 15,000, maybe. We didn't have the sound system. We didn't have the cool venue. We didn't have, staff, a lot of churches start, staff members will come from other churches and be a part, it was just us three. And so I'm not trying to, say how bad it was for all of us. I'm just saying we were speaking things before we could ever see it.
Right.
The current property, I got to give a lot of props to my mom, Pastor Stephanie. The current property that we own, it's debt free. 3 acres of prime acreage in Round Rock. That there's no land like that you can buy. You would have to go out of town to buy that amount of land. She
right on the interstate and everything.
Yeah, right on the interstate. She drove by there, and there was a current church meeting there, and she loved that church. She actually would go serve at that church and just help them because God told her that we were going to occupy that building one day. And so she was like, well, I'm not going to try to run them off or anything. I'm just going to go love them and try. Before it's just, before it's we crazy. Ever even had an idea that property would be our property, we would go up there and weed eat and clean. And just because we saw it of one day, this is going to be Oasis Church. Yeah. And we don't want it to look like how it looks right now. So we're going to go up there and we're going to put our faith in action. And I think that's where, the rest of James talks about putting your faith in action. But what we were talking, and it was crazy. I remember talking to people that are filled with faith, people that are Christians, people that are pastors. And I would tell them, yeah, this is what we're going to do. And it's going to be so cool. And it's going to be, yeah. And they would just be like, oh, sure it is. Yeah, that's great. But now, only a short 4 years later or so, and it's been a crazy 4 years, we have so many, hundreds of people that have found a home at Oasis, people that have been loved, people that have been baptized and saved. And, we have influence in the city. One thing I'll say it on here first, because you're on here, but we actually have Chief Alan Banks, who's our Round Rock Police Department chief, is actually going to be preaching at Oasis next weekend. And so that's just unheard of for a baby church to have that type of influence. For us to, because we're a multicultural church, we were one of the first churches that people reached out to of like, okay, well, you guys have been doing this racial reconciliation thing for a while, even though you're a baby church. What do you think about this? How do we do? What do we? And so that's stuff that you can't, that we didn't, we only saw in our mind. We did see it, but it wasn't physical sight. It was sight with our mind. So let me go grab, I'm preaching, but let me go grab that charger real quick. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, no problem. Well, and I'll just, for the guys that are watching and the ladies, don't want to exclude you, but just wanted to, recap and let you guys know that we are continuing our sermon series, Essential Services. Will be on episode 5. And so we're continuing that, and we will be launching. We're meeting back in facilities, but you can also watch right where you're watching right now, Facebook, YouTube, wherever it is. We will be live streaming. All that's not going to go away. We're committed to making it work, both online and in person. And so I believe we're still streaming starting at 10:15 on Sunday, right, Pastor?
Yes. So and not this Sunday, but next Sunday is going to be a big upgrade. I wish it was this Sunday, but we are actually, I know I've been saying this a lot, but it's not a lie, but we've been investing heavily in our online experience, and we're actually getting ready in the future to launch a full online campus where you can get involved on a serve team online, where you can do online small groups, where and so that's something that we're really excited about. But we are going to continue even once we start having our full on services, every Sunday we'll have a 10:30 service online, and then there will be some cool stuff that'll happen before the service and after the service that you'll only be able to see online. So we're actually right now building out a room in our building that's going to be a broadcast room, to where we'll have actually online hosts that are doing things in that room that is separate from what's being done in the auditorium. So we're going to have it's going to be kind of some of it's going to be what's happening in the auditorium, then we're going to have some. So it's going to be pretty cool. It's a big step for us. Like I said, we've invested a lot in it, but we've had people, not a ton of people, we're not like hundreds or thousands of people. I mean, we've had people join our church during the season strictly because of they found us online. And so we've had people get in connect groups that are from other states. We've had people, wanting to learn how they can serve. So it's pretty cool. We're going to definitely, we're not going to say like after all this, well, man, so glad we're done with all that online stuff. We're going to try to continue that and just make it better every week.
Yeah. So if you're watching, keep watching, because we're doing it for you. We want to connect with you guys. That's why we're doing this weekend on Wednesday. As we wrap up, if you have any more final questions, please put them in the comment section below, wherever it is. We can see those. So, but we're probably going to wrap it up here. Pastor Alex, what a great sermon. Just going to wait and see if anybody does have any final stuff. But man, it was so good to see you again. See you preaching.
We must have just answered the question so good, because
we did have some in there. And Troy, man, I appreciate. He told me
Troy's always on.
Put it on the patio in the summer. I'm gonna go put that sucker outside here in just a minute. Y'all pray for my.
I would encourage you guys, if you haven't already, go back and watch our sermons on YouTube, the full James series. We're gonna have 2 more weeks, maybe 3 more weeks of our Essential Services series, the book of James. If you are part of Oasis, I want to encourage you to RSVP for a service. We are opening, but it's a little bit different. So because of some of the restrictions, we are having everyone RSVP. So it's not like you don't have to buy a ticket or anything. We just need to know if you're coming and how many people are in your group. And because we're limiting our service size. So we opened, I haven't looked today, but we opened up 40 more chairs in both of our services for this Sunday. I think this Sunday is almost filled up. But then next Sunday, we're having 3 services, and there will be 100 in each service. So we'll almost be at full capacity next Sunday. But please, I know we got some texts and stuff last week that people were like, well, I wanted to come, but I didn't want to take somebody else's seat, or I wanted to. Please don't think that.
Right.
If you're able to come, if you feel comfortable with all the COVID stuff and all that sort of thing, please come. We will make it happen. We'll get you in. I know the guy that controls the list. So we will get you in. I want to make sure that you guys, because we really do believe that we love the online experience, and we're getting that more and more. But if you're able to, nothing replaces that in-person connection of the service, the worship, but also being together with the family, with the Oasis family. And we're still, we're not hugging, we're not shaking hands, we have social distancing, all that kind of stuff, but just still being there and hearing people laugh and seeing people smile. It's truly feels good.
Being in the room for live worship, I know you can watch all the live worship online as you can, but just there's something about corporate worship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's so good. All right.
Well, I think we answered everything.
I think we've answered everything, Pastor.
Yeah.
So with that, guys, we'll see you later. Please join us Sunday at 10:15 right here on Facebook or YouTube, where we'll kick off our live service. If you can't make it in person, we would love to see you if you could. Until next time, guys, we'll see you. Thanks for stopping by.